Beware. Secrets are secrets for a reason, and some do not wish to be discovered.
So I absolutely adore the Hunter's Nightmare. At least the opening parts of this. I think there's some really clever asset reuse. If I did have one complaint about the area, I'd say that any indication that there is a story, or at least a story that plays into the main narrative of the game, is really slight pretty early on into this DLC. But once it starts coming in, they just launch into it full throttle. In fact, near the end of this episode, you're going to see uh, what the story has to offer when we encounter an NPC that seems to know more than they're letting on. Actually, they're letting on that they know quite a bit, but they're being really cagey about it. And we're about to also encounter a new non-reoccurring hunter type that was added to the DLC. Um, if you remember the area from the main game, we're getting close to Gilbert's window. Gilbert being the NPC that most people are most likely to encounter at the beginning of the game. Unfortunately for poor Gilbert, when the blood moon descends, he becomes a beast. And right next to his window, we encounter a beast transformed hunter. Um, Now, there's been some speculation online that this may in fact be Gilbert. I don't really believe that. Uh, for one reason, and that is because he is wearing the old hunter's trousers, indicating that he was in fact a little before Gilbert's time. I do like the fact that this hunter exists only in this location, and once you kill him, he drops the firing uh, badge, firing pin, uh, hunter item. There we go. Firing hammer badge. Now, if I can speculate just a bit, I believe that the Beast Hunter may in fact be Otto, and the workshop may have been disbanded shortly after he became a beast. Or, uh, alluding to some content that is discovered later on in the DLC, uh, Otto may have, in fact, been the person to receive the Embrace rune, which is a Carol rune that can be gathered later on in the DLC. I believe that rune indicated that it may have been used at one point to try and ward off the Scourge Beasts, but failed spectacularly and caused hunters to transform into beasts. Um, I believe that Otto may have been the first recipient of this rune, and then after its spectacular failure, the Otto Workshop was disbanded and later reformed as the Powder Kegs. Um, Once again, there's very little to go on, just a little bit of interpretation on my part. That being said, I'd like to know what anybody out there, any of you, think about who the Beast Hunter is, whether or not they have any importance, or are just there to show off that, hey, guess what? You can transform into a beast now. And here we encounter the River of Blood, and it is crawling with Bloodlickers, which are my most hated enemies from the main game. They are, their movesets changed a little. I don't believe they are nearly as quick as the ones in Canehurst. That being said, they are also very well fed. The ones at Canehurst hit incredibly hard, and I hate that mule kick. I think that mule kick may, in fact, be the most unfair attack in the game, because I believe the Bloodlickers are the only enemies in the game that have a punishment for an attempted backstab. That being said, to get back to the Bloodlickers at Canehurst, the Bloodlickers at Canehurst are incredibly malnourished. They do not have the, at least most of them, do not have the big bloated gut. So that might be an indication that they're starving and are much more desperate for blood than the Bloodlickers here. That being said, the Bloodlickers here have a projectile attack, which does slow poison, and doesn't actually really do a lot of damage, but it's pain because it tends to interrupt almost every attack. And now we're nearing one of my personal favorite little side area set pieces of the game. An area that I lovingly refer to as the Party Cave. It's really, really kind of nasty. There are beasts. There's one beast in particular that will probably shock everybody the first time that they enter the cave. And that beast is actually situated after a pretty nasty hunter fight. And if you're wondering why I'm taking my time here, well, the entrance is narrow, and I'm hoping not to be ambushed. So, let's just crawl through the cave, and oh, there we go. A hunter who has a Gatling gun. That was probably the biggest surprise for me up until this point, and he almost immediately lights me up. The stun on the minigun is absolutely crazy. Otherwise, he's just using the saw spear, cleaver, and I realized that playing the range game with him wasn't going to work because he would just keep shooting me with the minigun. So I had to get up in his face and stun lock him with the threaded cane. So now that that guy's gone, we can take a look at the description for the Gatling gun. So, just from the item description, we can surmise that the cave probably contains beasts. The hunter in here was one of Durga's companions, and had a hand-mounted version of the minigun. How and why he was pulled into the nightmare isn't made clear. However, it's clear that he still has his sanity intact because he is protecting the beasts in the cave. And as I inch my way around here, I am going to do a quick fast forward because this looking around pensively is really boring. So, you've got a patient beast. I'm sure there's more than one. And it seems kind of rote. Oh no, backstab. Easy to dispatch all these guys, actually. And, you know, it's really dark, so unless you're on your game, it might be easy for one or two of them to sneak up on you. Check your corners. Make sure that there's no other ambushes coming. And proceed onwards. Kind of love that this guy's pathing gets a little jacked up, so he's fairly easy to take out. Chunks. This area is great for chunks and a weapon, which is actually my favorite weapon of the DLC. And there we go. There's the other nasty surprise. That's right, a blood-starved beast. Why? Because the game hates you. You have an encounter with a particularly nasty hunter. Then they give you a little reprieve by having you take on a couple of nothing beasts, and then hit you with a boss enemy as a normal enemy. Really, and if you notice from earlier in this cave, there is actually a ledge for you to drop off into this lower area pool, meaning that if you ran from the hunter, jumped in here, attempted to grab all these items, and run out, you would encounter the blood-starved beast, and then pull it and all the other enemies in this cave with you as you try to exit past the hunter. This cave is designed for you to really get wrecked if you try to just run it. I'm assuming that they really expected people to get to have a harder time with it than I did, and potentially try to rush through it because of the hunter in front. You'll notice that I just picked up a new weapon, which, as I mentioned earlier, is my favorite weapon in the game. Well, my favorite DLC weapon in the game. The Amygdalin Arm, which is a fantastically nasty piece of work when leveled up properly. And cross blur, because no one wants to watch me spend 42 seconds swinging around a new weapon. So, back to the River of Blood. And this little area right here is the last little gauntlet before we get to our first really, really major shortcut. We've got the Bloodlickers in the river, and then we've got hunters on the bridge. Firing incessantly. And even worse, for whatever reason, whenever I try to do a little bit of pulling with the pebble, wow, didn't even target it. The Bloodlicker didn't follow me, and then began to use its ranged attack. I'm not trying to get involved with having to dodge the Bloodlicker and the gunshots, but I think I lucked out and managed to get at least one of the hunters caught behind some geometry that deflected the bullets enough for me to take it out. This bridge is really, really great. We've got two rifle hunters with the BSAF. We've got the one hunter with the torch, and even though I roll over here, I completely miss the other hunter behind the stagecoach. I was trying to really time my attack between the two gunshots, but yeah, there you go. And honestly, had I been any lower level, I probably would have died right there. I'm sure plenty of people do. As I've mentioned before, started the DLC on New Game at level 190 because I decided to go through all of the Chalice dungeons as soon as I could before beating the game. The DLC actually had been announced after I got Bloodborne, and I decided, well, I'll go through my New Game, wait for the DLC to drop, and then complete it in my first run through. Mainly because, as a fan of the Soul series, fan of Demon Souls, Dark Souls, not so much of a fan of Dark Souls 2, and of Bloodborne, I wasn't sure exactly where the DLC was going to be placed, so I decided to wait it out and hope that we didn't get another Artorias of the Abyss scenario where you had to play through like 2/3 of the game before you could access the DLC. And we're about to meet our first hunter, or actually first NPC that gives us a bit of information on what's going on in regards to the hunter's nightmare. You'll notice that I'm being a little antsy in approaching him because I really couldn't read his silhouette and tell that it was a human being. But because he didn't aggro on me, I realized that it might be an NPC.
You're a hunter with your sanity, aren't you? Must have taken a wrong turn then, eh? Well, we're more alike than you think. This is the hunter's nightmare, where hunters end up when drunk with blood. You've seen them before. Aimless, wandering hunters slavering like beasts. This is what the poor fools have to look forward to. So, don't be brash. Turn back before it's too late. Unless you've something of an interest in nightmares. Oh yes, I see. You sense a secret within the nightmare and cannot bear to leave it be. As if the spirit of Bergenworth lives on within you. Such inquisitive hunters will relish the nightmare. But beware, secrets are secrets for a reason, and some do not wish to see them uncovered, especially when the secrets are particularly unseemly. Beware, secrets are secrets for a reason, and some do not wish to be discovered, especially when the secrets are particularly unseemly.
So, now we know. There's a secret to the nightmare. But there are more questions than answers. Who is this mysterious man? Why does he know this? Why are hunters brought into the hunter's nightmare? Why didn't I open that door? Well, you're going to have to come back for the next episode and find out. Thanks, everyone.